76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Is that you? I'm the CEO of 5 different companies. I wasn't born into it. We lived on welfare, but I wanted more. I created this show, The School of Wealth, helping people escape poverty like I did. I want to help you out of that consumer debt.
This is Brother Kim Carter. We just want to say thank you for reaching out to us, meeting our concerns and what we need to do. And I know you guys working hard on your side for the Carters, and that we are looking forward to be financially free.
Teach you how to increase your credit score. Teach you how to make more money at your current job or your current business. And then how to actually create generational wealth without changing your lifestyle. It is going to be a lot of fun. This is not like regular school. Hey, I'm Rondi Lambeth, and this is the School of Wealth. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the School of Wealth. Hope you guys are doing well. I heard through the grapevine, aka Chastney, the amazing Chastney, that she opened up today's training to the public. So normally we don't do that, but apparently she did that. So welcome for all you first timers that have never been here before. So I do this 3 Thursdays every month. The first Thursday, which is today, the first Thursday of the month, is all about credit. Personal credit. And then the second Thursday of the month is about business credit, business funding. And then the third Thursday is taxes. And then sometimes I'll do a fourth Thursday to make up, or if there's something else I want to talk about. Now, even though today is about personal credit, maximizing your personal credit score, if you have questions regarding building business credit, obtaining business funding, changing your corporate structure, or how to reduce your income tax, feel free to ask those questions now. And then as I go throughout today's teaching, I will get into Q&A. So today we're probably going to talk maybe 15, 20 minutes on maximizing your credit score. And then we'll get into Q&A after that. So Q&A, you can ask me anything you want, and I will either answer it if I am an expert in that field, or at least have a very good understanding of that field, or I will tell you I don't know, because I have no problem telling you I don't know. No problem whatsoever. My ego is not my amigo. Actually, my ego is my amigo. I have a friend that says that all the time. Your ego is not your amigo. Anyway. Let's get started. So what is credit? Credit is, I think you guys all know, like you have a personal credit report that is created when you are issued a Social Security number. Now, when are you issued a Social Security number? Basically, once when you're born and your parents submit it to the Social Security Administration, when they submit your birth certificate, or when they request a birth certificate, when they name you, you're going to be issued a Social Security number. Interesting fact that my Social Security number, I did not have one until I was 6 years old. So it must have been required for my mother to enroll me in kindergarten. So that's when I got mine. I know that because of the numbers on that. And my brother, who's 10 months younger than me, his Social Security number is only 2 digits different than mine. Mine ends in 41, his ends in 43. So the rest of the numbers are exactly the same. Interesting fact for you, that when you're born, your birth certificate is sent to the Department of Commerce, used as collateral against the debt the United States owes the Federal Reserve. Now, who's the Federal Reserve? It's a banking cartel. It's not federal. They have no reserves. It's a banking cartel that runs a very, very big spreadsheet that tracks trillions of dollars, US dollars, throughout the world. And they control pretty much the majority of the world. The only countries that the Federal Reserve doesn't control are countries that America has invaded: Iraq, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, etc. So when you're born, you get a birth certificate, which is then sold or transferred rather to the Department of Commerce against the debt of the United States corporation. And then you get a social security number. And then that social security number is attached to that birth certificate. So once you do that, that information is sent to, or is available rather, to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, along with the other hundreds of credit reporting agencies out there. Now, they don't start reporting anything until you turn 18 years old. Once you turn 18, they'll actually report it, and that's when you can start building your credit score. Now, generally, most banks will use the FICO credit system. And I thought that was going to change January 1st because FICO has been in the last couple decades now a lawsuit with Vantage and the U.S. government, because in 1996, our U.S. government authorized FICO to be a monopoly. Isn't that interesting? The government's always talking about how monopolies are illegal ever since John D. Rockefeller days when they broke up U.S. Steel. No, not U.S. Steel. U.S. Oil. I'm not even U.S. Oil. I'm sorry. Standard Oil. U.S. Steel was the competitor. So when they broke up Standard Oil, that was an attempt to crush America's first trillionaire, which John D. Rockefeller was a lot richer than Elon Musk. Way richer. It's just back then the dollar went a lot further. So if you actually account for inflation, John D. Rockefeller was a trillionaire because when they broke up Standard Oil, and I think they broke up into 23 companies. What they didn't realize is he still controlled all of them. He didn't own them anymore. Remember what he said, own nothing, control everything. So even though he didn't own those other oil companies, he still controlled them all. So when that happened, he became even more wealthy. Well, the U.S. government since then has said you can't have a monopoly unless they create the monopoly. And they in 1996, they created a federal law, or not a law, a statute. There's a difference between laws and statutes. They created a statute that made it to where mortgage companies had to use FICO. And recently they lost that multi-tens of billion-dollar lawsuit. We don't know the exact amount because it's sealed, but we know they lost. And FICO had to pay Vantage, they estimate, over $10 billion. And the U.S. government agreed that starting January 1st, 2025, which was 18 days or so ago, that mortgage credit reports would start showing Vantage credit scores. But for some reason, that was postponed indefinitely. And I'm not sure why yet. We haven't really got any information on it other than it's been postponed indefinitely. That would have made a huge difference for the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans would have had a much higher credit score. And unfortunately, the people who use their credit, maximize their credit cards every month for points, the wealthy, I should say the wealthy, but people who use the credit cards, they'd have a lower credit score. So I'm not sure if it was some threat of lawsuit with the CFPB or I don't know, but they just postponed it indefinitely. So we'll see when that monopoly actually ends. So when you become 18, the credit reporting agencies, which are not credit bureaus, see, they learned a lesson from the Federal Reserve that if you call it something federal sounding, that Americans will be afraid of it, that Americans will not revolt against it. See, if you knew that the credit bureaus were really just a marketing agency, they probably wouldn't be so powerful. But because they call themselves the Credit Bureau, kind of sounds scary, right? Like the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So they're just marketing agencies that gather information on us Same way that social media companies do it. That's where they got the idea from, where Zuckerberg and the others that create social media, that's where they got the idea, was from the credit reporting agencies that gather information about us and then they sell it. And that's why you get so much junk mail, pre-approved credit card offers or insurance offers or anything else. Those lists are compiled by the credit reporting agencies. So when you get your birth certificate, you get a social security number. When you turn 18, they start reporting it, and that's when you build your credit score. Now, what can you do to have the highest credit score? Well, I can tell you this, that 20%, only 20% of your credit score has to do with negative payment history. That means 80% of your credit score, 80% of your credit score has absolutely nothing to do with your payment history, your negative payment history. I'll repeat that because I think you need to hear that. 80% of your credit score has absolutely nothing to do with your negative payment history. Why did I repeat that a couple times? Because most people that hire a credit repair company think that if that credit repair company simply removes a late payment or a charge off or a collection, that all of a sudden magically they're going to have incredible credit. They're going to have an 850 credit score. And I'm telling you right now, it doesn't work that way. And the fact that you are here tells me that you care about your credit score, that you're motivated. You want to learn how to increase your credit score. And I applaud you for that because that's amazing. Most people just want the diet pill. They just want the Ozempic, even though it destroys your body, causes cancer. They just want to lose the weight. And then they look like zombies. You notice that? Hollywood zombies? Pretty disgusting, isn't it? Why don't you just start exercising and eating less? There's a good idea. But they don't want that. They want the quick fix. And that's why most people will hire companies like Lexington where they just challenge the items. And that's why the majority of people who hire a credit repair company end up with a worse credit score than when they began. And we try our best when we are onboarding clients not to accept those clients because we know in the end, all they're going to do is complain. They're not going to be happy. They're going to commit fraud and do a chargeback 6 months after we provided service. And it's all because they don't want to do the work to raise their credit score. So what about the other 80%? Well, that's why I created Fortress University and all the education. That's why I do these live coaching calls with you, is so you can actually learn about the other 80%. Because if only 20% has to do with your negative payment history, then the 80% is something else. And here's the most important thing when it comes to calculating your credit score. The most important, credit cards. It is by far the most valuable thing on your credit report. Without credit cards, you'll never have great credit. Without understanding how to use them, you'll never have great credit. If you don't have at least 3 credit cards open and used every month, you will never have great credit. I rarely say the word never. Rarely. And I'm telling you right now, if you do not have at least 3 credit cards open and used on a regular basis, you will never have great credit. So here's the formula. You need at least 3 credit cards at all times open. They must be used every month. And you don't want to go over 5% utilization rate. So you want to show at least 1%. I called it my 3-1-1 rule. 3 credit cards used every month and 1% spent on the credit cards overall. 3-1-1. Okay. The reason for that is FICO has figured out since 1956, that's when FICO was created. That's when they created the algorithm that predicts the future. That's what the algorithm does. It predicts the future, and it's done it accurately hundreds of billions of times since 1956. That's why banks trust FICO when it comes to credit scoring. And they figure something out, that people with 3 credit cards or more are less likely to miss a payment over the next 2 years. But people with no credit cards are more likely to miss a payment over the same 2-year period. So therefore, they give you more points if you have at least 3 credit cards. They also figured out that people that use their credit cards every month are more likely to make their payments on time, whereas the person who doesn't use their credit cards are more likely to miss a payment. People that keep their utilization rate between 1% and 5% are more likely to make their payments over the next 2 years. And people that overextend themselves and go over 5% are more likely to miss a payment. See, that's all the FICO credit scoring system is. It's an algorithm to predict the future on whether or not you'll pay your bills on time over the next 2 years. That's all the FICO score system is what's the likelihood of Johnny or Sally paying their bills on time over the next 2 years? Well, let's look back through billions of lines of code. What do the people that pay their bills on time have in common? 3 credit cards, used every month, keeping their balances between 1% and 5%. That's the magic formula. So if you want to have great credit, that's the formula. 3 credit cards, used every month, keep your balances between 1% and 5%. Now, if you go over 5%, because you have low limit credit cards, maybe you only have a $300 credit card. You get a tank of gas, it's $100. Now you're 33% utilized. What do? You simply pay off the credit card in a few weeks. Don't wait till the due date. Pay it off as soon as you can. If you're using the credit cards for the points, that means you have the cash, so just pay it off when you can. You don't need to pay interest, guys. You do not need to leave a balance on that credit card. In fact, that's like the last thing you should do is leave a balance. Pay it off. And you might be thinking, well, if I pay off the credit limit or I pay off the balance before the due date, the banks won't make any money on interest. Therefore, they won't extend me credit. They won't make any money. No, that's not it. They charge the merchant. So when you go, like I just went to Dutch Brothers, got myself a large iced cold brew, $6.37 that I paid with a credit card, because then I get almost 2% cash back on it. So I'm going to get, I don't know, 26 cents. Not a lot, but over time it adds up. But I'm going to pay that off. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that when Dutch Brothers charge that credit card, the American Express, the credit card company charged Dutch Brothers through their merchant account 1% to 2%. So they might have charged them 26 cents to process that transaction. So they give me the points, but then generally they charge more than that because they got to pay for the point somehow. So they might have charged 3%. So they might have charged 30 cents and paid me 22 cents or something, whatever the math is. And then if I don't pay off the credit card, that's when it's extra profit. But generally they make, like American Express Platinum, there is no interest. My charge card has to be paid off every month in full. That's why it's called a charge card. My Capital One double cash back Spark card has to be paid off in full every month. There's no interest. How does Capital One make hundreds of millions of dollars? The percentages. They have billions of dollars going through, and 1-2% adds up really fast. So if you want to use credit cards and you go over that 5%, just pay it off. You don't need to pay it off that day. Pay it off once a week, or don't get crazy with this. You can set it up to like every Sunday you look at your bills and you just go on your phone. I do it all the time on my phone. I open up Capital One, I hit make a payment, balance, submit, and I just pay it off. And that's the way to manage it. Is it worth the points? I think so. At the end of this month, I'm flying first class to Hawaii. I'm staying in a 5-star resort for a week, all inclusive with a $200 credit per day. I plan on getting a massage every single day. I'm going to go scuba diving or snorkeling rather with the whales. I'm taking my dog. They actually have a doggy daycare spa where he gets massages and pedicures and all the stuff. It's crazy. I'm paying for all of it. All of it. The airfare, the food, the drinks, the entertainment, the massages, all of it from me and my girlfriend through just my Capital One points. So is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. It's worth it for me to have to go in once a week and pay off the credit card. So that's the formula, the 3-1-1. 3 credit cards. Use them every month. Keep the balance between 1% and 5%. Pay it off in full every month. All right, let's get into some Q&A. First one, Isaac Flores. Lexington has done far less than Fortress Credit Pro, plus the education that is literally beneficial to all the people in the network actually wants to do the same. I appreciate the comment, Isaac, but I'm not understanding actually wants to do the same. I don't know what you mean, but I thank you for that. Maybe you could explain that a little bit. Let's see, due date versus statement date. Hey, that's a great question. If you go into Credit Mojo, so if you open up Credit Mojo and you click on the 3 little lines, it looks like a little hamburger. Or if you have it on a wide screen, you click on, it'll say scores. You click on that. You're going to look for Score Boost. Score Boost. If you click on Score Boost, it will tell you how many credit cards you have, what your utilization rate is, and there's a little button next to it that says Best Paydown Date. If you click on that, it will tell you what day of the month that specific credit card reports to the credit bureaus. It's generally, not always, but generally the day after your statement date, but not always. So if you want to know for sure, you just log into Credit Mojo, click on Score Boost, scroll down, click on Best Paydown Date, and it will tell you specifically what day of the month that credit card reports to the credit bureaus. And that's the day that it has to be paid off in full. So I would pay it off the day before. It's generally the statement date, and then the due date comes later. So if you're paying everything off on the due date and you owe over 5%, your credit score will be lower. And when FICO 10T takes effect, which was supposed to take effect January 1st, this is really important, guys. When it takes effect, if you're the kind of person that does not pay off your credit card in full, you're going to wake up with 150 to 200 point lower credit score. So if you've been rolling around a 780 and you never pay off your credit card in full, you just maintain the balance because you're getting 0%, you're going to wake up with a 550 to 680 because of the way Vantage 4.0 and FICO Model 10T is set up. It's the trending data over the last 2 years of what you've done with your credit cards. Are you the type of person that pays them off in full, or are you the type of person that pays the minimum payment? And if you're the minimum payment person, you're going to have a much lower credit score than you did on the FICO 4, 5, and 2 model system and the Vantage 3.0. So it's really important that you start paying off your credit cards. Plus, there's no reason to pay all that interest. There's really not. All right. So do you pay for a business name? Well, I suppose you do. If you incorporate your business name, like if you wanted to be called Dutch Brothers Incorporated, I don't know if they're an LLC or an Inc., I'm not sure. But if you wanted to do Dutch Brothers, you would give birth to that company in the state that you choose. And you would pay the state, if you decided to give birth to your company in probably the greatest state in America, which would be Wyoming, I think you pay $113 or maybe it's $116, somewhere in there. And then you pay, I think it's $50 a year after that to maintain your baby, your company, your LLC, your corporation in the state of Wyoming. So when you give birth to it, so when you create the entity and you name it, when you register that name and you get your birth certificate, which is your articles of incorporation, then you're going to pay $100+. It's not very much. And then you go to the irs.gov site and you get your baby, your company's EIN number, which is the same amount of numbers as a social security number. Interesting, isn't it? The difference is they just put the dash in a little different place. So there's only 2 dashes with an EIN. I'm sorry, there's only 1 dash with an EIN. There's 2 dashes with your social. So social is 3 numbers dash, 2 numbers dash, 4 numbers. Whereas with an EIN, it's 2 numbers dash, and then the rest of the numbers. So great question. Do you pay for the name? Yeah, I guess you do. Now, if you just want to do a doing business as sole proprietor, depending on your state, you could do a DBA, and it might cost you $5, $50, depends on your state. If you live in the state of California, good luck. It's going to be about $1,500 a year. Worst state in the country to have a business. I think it's actually the worst state in the world. The worst place in the world now to have a business is California. Do you see today, Meta is moving their corporate headquarters out of California to Texas? Yeah, that's a big deal. Meta is leaving. So anyway, what else we got? If late payments matter least, why does a single late payment drop your credit score 100+ points? Well, it generally doesn't. So one late payment's not going to drop you 100+ points. I'm not saying that if you have a late payment that hits your credit, that your score won't drop 100 points. I'm saying it's not the late payment that dropped at 150 points or 100 points. What happens is if you have a late payment and a maxed out credit card and a multiple inquiries, it puts you in a different scorecard. And there's over 4,000 different scorecards that FICO uses. So the perfect scorecard, the scores are 300 to 850. But if you had a bankruptcy, let's say, you automatically lose 50 points for the bankruptcy. So that puts you in a different scorecard. If you have a collection on your credit report, it puts you in a different scorecard. If you have a late payment, it puts you in a different scorecard. I've never seen, ever, in now 18 years of doing this, I've never seen someone's score go down by 100 points from one late payment. It's usually a combination of everything else. It's kind of like COVID. Very few people died of COVID. Very, very few. In fact, I don't know if they have a single person recorded that died from COVID. Now, I know there are people that got shot and they coded it as COVID. I know people that were killed in car accidents and they coded it as COVID. I know people that had lung cancer and heart failure and COPD and diabetes and morbidly obese, and they got COVID and died. But I don't know of a single person recorded that just had COVID and died. I mean, I'm sure there's some of them, but it's like extremely low. So I've never seen a late payment by itself ever drop someone 100 points because there's not that many points for it. It's because of the scorecard. It's kind of like this. A late payment, a single late payment is like a car ding, a door ding. My last truck that I had, I knew I was going to sell it in July. I always travel on the 4th of July. So this, I've never seen I want to see the fireworks in all 50 states. And I'm up to like 13 or 14 states. So 2 years ago, I went to Salt Lake City because I wanted to see the fireworks there. And I went to Shields because I wanted to buy some stuff, some clothing there. And so I generally park a long ways away from everybody else because I don't want people hitting my vehicles with their car doors. So I parked a long ways away. I go inside, I come back, and there's this huge dent in the side of my truck door. Someone had thrown a shopping cart down the hill and it ran into my truck. And when I say huge, it was a door ding. But it didn't make the value of the truck go down that much. It was just a ding. It wasn't like kicked in or anything. And then I took it to a dent or a paintless dent repair shop, and it was like $100, and he popped it out. And you couldn't even see it. It's kind of like what happens with late payments, a little bit more. It's less than a fender bender, but it's one single late payment is like that door ding. It's annoying. And then after 2 years, it doesn't matter at all. So when your car is 4 or 5 years old and you got a door ding on it, one door ding in the back, in the trunk area or whatever, it doesn't really matter much. So I hope that analogy helped you a little bit. So it was comorbidities. My tongue is all twisted up today. How many inquiries are too many? You know, almost every single question you ask me when it comes to this stuff is going to be, it depends. And I'm not trying to be a smart ass. It just depends. It depends, Gary, on what else is going on with your credit. In fact, 90% of inquiries for the majority of people are completely ignored. So if you go into a car dealership and they pull your credit 50 times in a 30-day window, whether it's all at one day or spread out over 30 days, but you have 50 inquiries from a car dealership, FICO looks at that as one inquiry because they understand what the car dealerships are doing. They're shopping. You're not going to 50 different banks trying to get 50 cars. They understand it's one dealership pulling it 50 times. So it counts as one. Now, if you go to get business funding from a bank like Chase, they have what's called the 524 rule, which says if you have more than 5 inquiries over a 24-month period, automatic denial, regardless of your business, regardless of your credit score, regardless of your income. Automatic denial. It's called the 524 rule. So when you ask that question, how many inquiries are too many? Well, it depends. If you're applying for business funding, anything over 5 is too many. If you're applying for a mortgage or a credit card or a car loan personally, and all the inquiries were in the same 30-day window, then it doesn't matter because FICO ignores them. And then after 6 months, FICO completely ignores them. After 12 months, there is no impact on the credit score whatsoever. And then after 2 years, it falls off. So the answer is really it depends. But generally, you want to keep them as low as possible. Here is a little tidbit. Make sure you listen to this one. When you go to a car dealership and you find the car and the car salesman says, hey, let's go ahead and pull your credit and see what kind of deal we can get you. Here's what you need to do. You're going to sign the application. Basically, you're giving them permission to pull your credit. Underneath your signature, you're going to write one credit inquiry only. So again, under your signature, when you give the dealership permission, you're going to write one credit inquiry only. And then you're going to take out your phone and you're going to take a picture of that screen, that application. If they pull your credit more than once, it is a $1,500 statutory fine, which means they're going to pay $1,500 every single time. And here's what will happen is you'll leave and they'll continue to pull your credit. I just had this happen to one of my cousins. He went in, they pulled his credit once, he left, they kept pulling his credit. They pulled it 3 more times. He's going to get $4,500 now because he wrote on there, one inquiry only, took a picture of it. They pulled it 3 more times after that, total of 4. So he's going to get $4,500 if they don't fight him. If they fight him, it's going to go to court and it's going to be a lot more. So if you want to protect your credit, always write one inquiry only. keep the picture. And if they pull your credit more than once, give us a call because we will hook you up. $1,500 a piece. It's good stuff, right? All right. But you have to have proof that you wrote that on there. That's the thing. You have to have proof. So that's why you take a picture of it. Are any of the debt consolidation companies legit? I would say probably. Most of them. Most debt consolidation companies. I think you're probably thinking of debt settlement companies. There's a difference between debt settlement and debt consolidation. A debt consolidation company is someone that takes all of your debt, combines it, consolidates it into one loan, and then you pay them one payment. So, for example, and they're not really companies. I mean, they're finance companies. So you could go, let's say you had 3 credit cards and you went to US Bank and you're like, I want a debt consolidation loan. If your credit's right, US Bank would issue you a loan, a signature loan, unsecured, non-collateralized signature loan. And they take all those credit cards and they pay them off for you. And now you got one payment to US Bank, generally at a lower interest rate. That's debt consolidation. And that, my friend, is almost always a very powerful thing to do if you have credit card debt. And the reason why is because when it pays off the credit card, your utilization rate goes down, credit score goes up. It is one of the best ways to increase your credit score because FICO does not care how much money you owe on loans. They don't care how much you owe on a mortgage. They don't care how much you owe. I mean, they do a little bit, but not very much. But they care a lot. 165 points to be exact. 165 points. You will lose 165 points if you max out your credit cards. And if you pay them all off, as soon as they report, you gain 165 points. So if you have 3 credit cards that are all maxed out and you go do a debt consolidation loan, as soon as that reports the following month, your credit score will be 165 points higher. That's debt consolidation. Now, there are companies out there that say they're debt consolidation, but they're not. They're debt settlement companies. Here's the difference. They will then tell you, hey, Sean, stop paying all your credit cards, and instead of paying them, pay us. And then you pay them. They put their money in an escrow account, and then they wait until you have enough money to settle the credit card debt at 50 to 70% of what you owe. Or they wait till you get sued, and then they work out some type of settlement agreement. That's how most of these companies work. And when it's all said and done, you pay about 70% of what you owed, plus you then have to pay income tax on the other 30% that was forgiven. So when it's all said and done, you're paying about 85 cents on the dollar. It's not worth it usually. What we do at Fortress is we do debt restructuring, where unlike debt consolidation and debt settlement, debt restructuring, we contact the creditor, whether it's an SBA loan, an EIDL loan, an unsecured loan, or a credit card, collection company as well, we'll contact them and we make them an offer they can't refuse. No, we do not break into their house and throw a dead horse head in the CEO's bed, even though I thought about that. No, that's not what I mean by making them an offer they can't refuse. We make them an offer they can't refuse because it's in their best interest or their shareholders to accept the offer because we found something wrong in their paperwork. So, for example, you owe Capital One $10,000. We find in the paperwork that it wasn't dated right. There's some violation of the Uniform Commercial Code. We then go to them and say, hey, look, because of this, the contract is actually null and void. It's breached. There is no real contract. However, you did issue $10,000 of credit to our client. They do want to pay you something. So instead of paying you $10,000, how about they pay you $2,000, no interest, and 12 payments? And they will take it almost every single time. So on average, With our debt restructuring program, you're going to save 70%, 50 to 70% of what you owe. And then when you get the 1099, we're going to, majority of time, get that 1099 set aside because it was filled out incomplete or inaccurately. So just this week, one of my clients received 2 1099s, and the amount and the year was wrong. And because the amount and the year was wrong, the 1099 is garbage. And so we just send a letter. We have a letter that we send it to the client, and then you send it to the IRS. And then the IRS fines the credit card company, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. So with us, you save 70%, versus if you go with debt consolidation or debt settlement, you're going to be paying 85 cents on the dollar instead of 30 cents on the dollar. So that's the difference between debt consolidation, debt restructuring, and debt settlement. You advise against using a business loan through Stripe to pay down any personal. Oh, that's a question. Do you advise against using I'm going to reword your question if that's okay. And I know sometimes I will write stuff that's weird because I use voice dictation a lot. So, do you advise against using a business loan through Stripe to help pay down any personal credit cards? Maybe. I mean, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be a good idea. It depends on your situation. Is it because Stripe is going to give you a substantial savings? Or is it because you want to use Stripe to pay off the credit cards so then you can go on vacation and use the credit cards to pay for the vacation? I don't know. Now, have I done that before where I took out 0% loans or lower interest loans to pay off credit cards? Absolutely. I do it all the time. Is it a good idea every time? No, not every time. Is it a good idea the majority of the time? Absolutely. If you can get an installment loan, especially a business loan, to pay off personal credit cards, I'd do that every single day of the week. Now, here's something you need to know. It's a business loan that's paying off personal credit cards. Do not try to deduct the interest. Don't include it on your taxes unless the money that was paying off on the personal credit cards was actually business debt, then you can do it. But if you're using business credit, which business funding, I recommend this all the time. Use business credit to obtain business funding, because a lot of times you can get up to 2 years at 0% interest. Use the business credit card to pay off the personal credit cards. Just don't try to pull a fast one on the IRS. You might get away with it, but then you might get caught. Kind of like what's going on in Washington right now. They've been getting away with it for a long time. And now these little whiz kids using AI are exposing all of the corruption. Like sending $127 million to the Taliban to fight American soldiers. USAID sent $127 million to the Taliban to fight US soldiers. That's the kind of corruption they're discovering right now. So you might get away with it. So don't do that. Just get the business loan, pay off the personal credit cards. Just don't deduct the interest. Most people are touting that credit repair doesn't work anymore, which I don't believe. Why do you think the narrative's all out there? Well, that narrative's been around since 1971. So here's a little history of credit. In the 1960s, we had a lot of racism in the 1960s, primarily from the Democratic Party and primarily from banks. And what banks were doing was they were getting the credit bureaus to lie and report misinformation on Blacks' credit reports and Spanish, Latin Americans, Asians. They were getting them to report misinformation, complete factual or non-truthful. If you were gay and the bank knew, they would get the credit bureaus to lie on your credit report so you could not get credit. And this was happening a lot in the 1960s. And so people started complaining, and the Republican Party in 1970, with almost 100% of the Democrats fought this, by the way, the Equal Opportunity Act. Almost every single Democrat fought this. So the Republican Party in 1970 created the Fair Credit Reporting Act that said anything reported on your credit report has to be fair and it has to be accurate. And ever since then, the Democratic Party has been spreading this lie about credit repair, because in the Fair Credit Report Act, it says that you have a right that if you see your credit report and something's on there that's inaccurate, you have the right to send a letter to the credit bureau and the bank, and they have to do what's called a reasonable investigation, and they have to either correct the information or remove it. That's what credit repair is. But because the credit reporting agencies and the banks contribute hundreds of billions of dollars to these corrupt Democratic politicians, they get away with it. Now, why do I keep saying Democrats? It's because it's actually the Democratic Party that is sided with the credit bureaus and the banks. And that's not a political statement. It's a factual statement. In fact, there's what's called Operation Choke Point, and you can look it up. In 2012, Obama created it, 2012. Operation Choke Point tried to make it to where it was illegal for credit repair companies to operate, because they want to stop credit repair companies from helping the middle class. Another case in point, it was so embarrassing for the credit bureaus when this happened in 1960s. They got exposed. They had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. That the credit reporting agency that's in Atlanta, Georgia, their name used to be called the Retail Company. And they were so embarrassed about getting exposed for their racism, they changed their name to Equifax, which is short for everyone's equal and it's just the facts. But it's still illegal in the state of Georgia to hire a credit repair company to fix your credit. Now, why is that? Why is it in Georgia and South Carolina, why is it illegal to hire a credit repair company? Every year we fight it, and every year the credit bureaus and the banks throw millions of dollars against this. They do not want. Who's the biggest demographic of people in Georgia? You guys know who, right? How did the Fair Credit Report Act come around? Because the Democrats were discriminating and the banks and the credit bureaus were lying on the credit reports for generally one demographic of people, which is the largest demographic of people in Georgia, where this racist credit bureau is called Equifax. That's why. And this is spread. And then when Biden got elected, guess what he did? He sent Chopra through the CFPB to go in and start shutting down credit repair companies. And they fined Lexington Law $3.4 billion. Why? Because Lexington Law was giving out and had conducted millions of free credit consultations. And the Democratic Party created what's called the TSR, and they put in there that this only for credit repair companies. Only credit repair companies, guys. A credit repair company is not legally allowed to do a free consultation for someone wanting to engage in credit repair. It's illegal. Now, why is that? Why is this narrative? Because they don't want the working class to be able to have access to accurate and fair credit reports and credit scores. That's why. So that's just the way it is. The only way we can fix it, guys, is vote them out. Now, fortunately, we don't have a CFPB anymore. They got shut down. So here we are. What else we got? He called DMB and wanted to report business Stripe payments to my profile. They wanted me to pay. Yeah. Of course they did. So There's two branches, or there's two DMBs. It used to be one, now it's two companies. The one that you called is actually a sales and marketing company. You'll never actually be able to talk to the credit reporting company. So when you call, you only talk to the sales department or the sales and marketing company, also known as DMB. So they're trying to sell you service. And if Stripe is not going to report it, then you have to pay for it. But here's the thing, it's not worth paying it, because most banks ignore self-reporting. So what you need to do is if you're a business credit client, go through the portal and it'll give you a list of the banks and the vendors that do report to the credit bureaus, as well as Dun & Bradstreet, and just do business with them. Like I have lots of vendor accounts, they don't report, and that's just the way it is. So you just want to go through there. You only need 3 to 5. I think Walmart, the last time I saw Walmart's credit report, business credit report, I think they only had 12 accounts. Think about that. Walmart, at one time the largest company in the world. I think it's still the largest retail company in the world. They had like 12 items on there. So you don't need to have, it's not like personal credit where you need to have, pages and pages. As long as you have 3 to 5, you have a good, solid credit report when it comes to business. Is it true if you're a consultant, a company cannot offer you equity in the company? That's not true at all. No, Gary. So now, again, it depends, because when it comes to legalese and stuff, it does depend. But if you go to work for a company, any company can give you shares in the company in exchange for compensation. In fact, if you look at, I don't know if you guys have noticed this or ever heard this before, put an 8 in the chat if you've ever heard this. I'm going to copy something from my good friend Mark Lewis. He's my tax coach. He does 8 for haters. Not that you're a hater, but you hate the information. So you're mad at the information. You've heard it before. So put an 8 in the chat if you've ever heard someone say, we need to get the rich to pay their fair share of taxes. The billionaires don't pay their fair share. We need to create laws to make the billionaires pay their fair share. Have you ever heard them say the fair share in taxes? You guys ever put an 8 in there? 8s, right? You've heard that before. It's like this broken record. Why doesn't Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett or me, why don't we pay personal income tax? Because we don't take income, or the income we take gets offset by depreciation. See, Elon Musk does not get paid billions of dollars in Federal Reserve notes, also known as debt, but cash. He's not paid with cash, he's paid with shares. And as long as he doesn't sell the share, there's no income. So if you guys go buy Tesla stock, it's a great stock. Or if you buy Apple stock, if you buy the stock and you never sell it, do you pay income tax on that? No. It's only when you sell it. So can you, if you go to work for a company as a consultant, can they offer you shares? 100%. In fact, that's one of the ways I get paid with my corporate restructuring I do for clients. Sometimes the clients are short on cash and I want to help them save $50,000, $100,000 in their taxes every year, but they don't have the cash because they're overextended. So I just get shares in their company. And then I take a little piece of their company every single year until the amount of money is paid off. So any company can give you, for the most part, I mean, there's, publicly traded companies, they can't just give it to you. But yeah, you can get it. Now, sometimes you got to pay taxes on it. If they give it to you, you have to pay tax on the shares. If you buy the shares, they have to pay taxes on it. But yeah, they can make you a shareholder. That's fine. How do I get started on the business credit side, and how much monthly is it? You can go into your Go High Level app, your Fortress University app. So you can log in there and you click on business credit and you can activate the subscription. And I think it's $3.99. I think that's what the Monthly fee is on it. Cancel anytime. We used to charge $7,500 for it. And it just, I did a lot of private coaching. And then when I had a heart attack in November 2023, I just stopped doing all that private coaching. And I just made it a monthly fee. And it's all online. And then you can do the coaching here on Thursdays. So to get that, there it is. Not a member. It's one time. There it is at Fortress U. So thank you, Chastity. I don't know. I don't deal with the money stuff anymore. I used to, but not anymore. What's the best way to get a low, no interest business credit? What's the best way? I don't know. There's lots of best ways, lots of ways to do it. I don't know. I'm going to guess what you're asking, which is like, what's the best way? I would go to creditcards.com and I would sort by business credit cards. And then I'd see if you qualify for it. Just know this, business cards, unless you're doing millions of dollars a year in revenue and you've been in business for a long time and you have a relationship with a bank, you're always going to have a personal guarantee. There's a few banks out there, your Chases, your American Express, Wells Fargo will do it, but you got to have a lot of volume, a lot of money going through that account or coming into the account before you can get it's called corporate credit. So you can build it if once you get into the Fortress business credit, the very last step of all of the other steps is corporate credit. So know this, that almost all business credit cards are going to look at your personal credit. They don't necessarily deny you because of your personal credit, but they're going to want to see how you manage your personal finances. And they're going to make you sign a personal guarantee. So I would say the best way is to go to creditcards.com, or if you're a business credit client, go into the portal and look for that. But if you're not, you go to creditcards.com, sort by business, and then pick the one that works best for you, the benefits, etc. And then I would find out, it's really important to find out if they report. If you get a Capital One, almost all Capital One credit cards, even though they're business, still report to your personal, and then it kind of defeats the purpose. However, one of the advantages of having the business credit card like Capital One report to your personal credit is usually those credit limits are $35,000, $50,000, $75,000, etc. So that can be very beneficial to your personal credit score as long as you don't max out that credit card. So that is an advantage. And so if you have a bunch of $5,000 personal cards and you get a $50,000 Capital One card, that fixes your utilization rate. But if you max it out, your score tanks. So I'd say go to creditcards.com. What else we got? I'm going to scroll through here. That's a wrap. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope you learned a lot today. Feel free to reach out to the company if you need help with your credit. If you need credit monitoring, creditmojo.com will give you $1 million of credit monitoring service, creditmojo.com. If you need credit repair, you can go to fortresscreditpro.com. We have two options for you. You have the monthly, it's $149 a month. We work on everything, cancel anytime. Then we have the paper delete. That's for folks that are like, I want my credit fixed in the next 90 days. That's a paper delete. You pay $125 per account that we get removed from your credit report after we get it removed. So if we don't remove anything from your credit, you don't pay anything for credit repair. And then if you're a business owner and you pay over $7,500 in personal income tax and you want to stop paying personal income tax, go to my personal website, rondilambeth.com, and schedule a consultation. And I'll show you how you can make millions upon millions of dollars a year and pay no personal income tax. The same way that Elon Musk does it, and Jeff Bezos, and me, and Zuck, and all. I'm not a billionaire, but the way that very wealthy people, this is how the wealthy legally structure their companies so they pay no personal income tax. And I'll show you how to do that. Just schedule a consultation at rondilambeth.com. All right, guys, that's a wrap. See you later.